My name is Michael Doyle. I'm 64 years old. Well, I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but resided in Memphis, Tennessee for the last 45 years. Came here right after the war. I was in the Vietnam conflict, and I was there from 1967 to 1968. When I went to Vietnam, I was 19 years old. My rank and position was, I was a combat medical specialist. I was a combat medic, basically. And I went over to Vietnam as a specialist 4th class and came out as a E5 sergeant, specialist 5th class. I was drafted. War wasn't very popular back in those days, and not too many people enlisted. Most of us were drafted. You know, my basic function was to give medical emergency service to combat problems and fatalities, not fatalities, but wounds, and give administer first aid to treat people, to get them back, to get them better aid back in the aid stations or in the rear hospitals. I was in combat for almost the entire year. Well, you make a lot of friends. You have a lot of comrades and a lot of friends, and you become a brotherhood. You make very, very close friends. After the war, that's actually how I got to Memphis, Tennessee. I came down here to visit from my home state of Michigan to visit a friend of mine that I was in Vietnam with, and I ended up staying here and continuing. I'd gone to a 2-year school and graduated from that, and was going to go on to a 4-year institution, and ended up going to Memphis State, and thoroughly enjoyed that. Moved down here, met a young lady from Australia, and married her, and 3 children later, the rest is history. Kept up with, they kind of dwindle over the years, but I've kept up with a few of them. Yes, we still communicate and talk, and of course my best friend lived here in Memphis. You can win the battles and lose the war. We normally won the battles, but ended up eventually losing, obviously, the Vietnam War. Probably one of the biggest disasters of wartime that the American military ever fought, in my opinion, today. At the time, and the reason that I went into the service, I was called to duty. You have duty and honor and so on and so forth, and it's just my obligation to my country. Well, I remember the camaraderie. You certainly grow up. You gain a lot of personal experience. There's a lot of things that I learned and that I did in the war, and things that I did. I'm proud of everything I did. We served gallantly and we served honorably. You remember, you try to forget the bad things and remember some of the good things. At the time, everything was bad. As you look back on it and you get older, there was actually a lot of good, a lot of character building that happens to you when you're in a combat situation, under military rule. A lot of things that you learn, a lot of discipline, and it was a great education. Very, very good education for me. When I went in, I was 19. When I came out, it was just before my 21st birthday. Well, creating great friendships, the bonding that you have and the things that you do, and there's nothing like fighting with a comrade and both of you knowing and realizing and understanding the type of situations that you were in. It's hard to tell somebody what combat is, or what a war is, or what a battle is, or what it's like to be in combat, unless you can experience that. And when you have a friend that's back here and you experience those things together, it creates a camaraderie and a bond between you, because it's easy to say, well, this happened and that happened, and but when you have someone that was there that knew exactly what happened, and you knew what happened, and you knew how the reaction of different people, and people react different in war and battle and under pressure. So that would be a way of saying, of answering that. Well, I wasn't there long enough to have a lot of years in there, but I was 20 years old. Well, this is only just one piece. There's several other things, but this would be in the conflict. This is kind of the ingenuity that the enemy that we were fighting. Everything that you have here is made from American. This knife right here was made from American 155 bomb shell. The steel that's left off from that, they whittled it out. They cut this out. This handle was made out of the same thing, stuff that they pick up that we think is trash, and the casing for it is made up of bamboo. The interesting thing about the bamboo and about the casing is that it's pretty old, so it's kind of, is all this wiring that's around it, that all came from like trip flares that we would have, and wire that we would leave just behind. Well, they found a very unique, and they were pretty good engineers in a way, because they used that to tie all that around there to make this, and this was simply bamboo cut in half and made a pretty good holster for that little knife. So I found that very interesting at the time that it happened, and over time a lot of stuff disappears and dissipates, and so and I've given a lot of it to my sons, and so that just happens to be here. A girlfriend that I went all the way through high school with, I got engaged before I left for Vietnam. Very young and very, very premature. At the time, I didn't think so, but as you get older, you realize that those are, kind of rough things, and things get rather turbulent during when you're apart and away from somebody. And so I got what they call a Dear John when I was in Vietnam, and that said, John looks better than you do, buddy. Either he's in and you're out. So yeah, I did. That was a very hard experience. At the time, the mood of the country was not very pro-war. They were very anti-war. A lot of demonstrations were going on. The country was in a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of distaste for the Vietnam War, and a lot of demonstrations going on. A lot of people not wanting to go, which I didn't blame them for that. I got into the Vets Club over at Memphis State, and we just went to do our duty. We didn't go to, we didn't kill babies, and we didn't kill women or children or any of that type of thing. We just did our duty, and sometimes young people don't really understand what duty is and why people do go, and when they're called on by their fellow Americans to serve their country. But being young, and most of these demonstrators were young, I joined the Vets Club with my friend. It was here in Memphis, and we were both going to Memphis State. Very interestingly, we came out of a meeting one time at Memphis State where we had about 46 members, and we came out, and they had learned that we were having this organized meeting, and when we came out on the student common, out of the student commons and on the steps, they were ready with tomatoes and eggs and all kinds of things that they threw at us, and called us baby killers, and all these things, and that was very unfortunate that we lived in those type of times. So that wasn't a very good thing, but you remember those things. And today I'm glad it's much different with our veterans and our combat personnel that are returning from war, because they are honored and they're respected, and that's the way they should be.